Hello and welcome to A Girl, a Guy, and a Buffy podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Charles Swint,
And I'm your other host, Kate Balzer.
and we're two friends who have been watching Buffy since the beginning. We're not a rewatch podcast because we explore the big bad themes of the show, and this podcast is full of spoilery goodness. So if you have not watched the entire show and don't want to be spoiled, press pause now. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm so delightful.
Beat you with a side of
I
Keen.
am over. I know. I want a double helping of Keen today. That's how I'm doing. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about today's topic. No, so our question for this episode is there more to friendship than slaying?
So
Thoughts, questions,
yes.
places you're concerned?
No, okay, yes. So I think a lot of the idea around this is that, they start like the Scooby's friendship started because of the slaying.
Hmm.
Well, it started because Xander was a horn dog and was trying to get in Buffy's pants. Um, that's neither here nor there. That was the impetus for everything, but really, like, the friendship formed because of the slaying
Yeah.
and everything around the slaying, and that was sort of what drew them together.
Right. It cemented it for sure. I think it was kind of starting to be there. And I think one of the thoughts I had in doing this research was which ties into what you're saying as far as the impetus and the start of these people becoming friends. I mean, obviously Xander and Willow had had years of friendship, but kind of becoming the trio that they eventually become. One of the places that really truly starts, and when you think about it, is an awesome moment. It says so much about her character growth. I think it's such a wonderful, she serves as such a wonderful role model, but is when Buffy consciously decides not to befriend, not to go down the popular girl Cordelia path, but chooses Willow and wanting to be friends
Hmm.
with her. I mean, she approaches her for, academic help, but really when Cordelia is making fun of her, you can kind of almost see in Buffy's brain, like literally the path forks in front of her, and she's like, I'm not going to follow. I'm not going to be who I used to be. I've changed too much already. Even if I don't want to be a Slayer anymore, like I'm going to befriend the sweet girl who, treats people well.
Right. Because there was no reason for
No.
Cordelia to come up with the like, oh, so glad to see you've seen the softer side of Sears. It was like out of nowhere. It's a great line. I
It's a great,
mean,
it makes me laugh, but it's so mean. She
it's
is
so
so mean.
yeah,
Um,
agreed. And
yeah.
like there is and she even says to her, she was like, well, I hate to like stop like what does she say? Like your downward mobility, like your down
Yes, yes,
like
exactly.
in just a few like literally in like hours of her being here, she's been hanging out with Cordelia and then, legally
Yeah.
she's not supposed to talk to Cordelia and Willow at the same
Right.
time. Like that's, you
Right.
know.
But I love that. I love what that says about Buffy as a person. I love what that says about her character growth. And I think also it shows how Buffy is going to make her own path. Because eventually she has eventually she has Willow and Cordelia as a friend. I
Hmm.
mean, granted, her friendship with Cordelia isn't as deep as it is with Willow, but they all end up becoming that friend group. So,
Right.
she basically was able to have it all anyway.
Yeah, I agree that there is definitely it does show a maturity of Buffy that maybe we weren't expecting to see sort of initially.
Yeah,
And it's definitely not who she was before in the movie.
right,
You see vampires, your
right.
life changes. Like
Yeah,
your perspective shift significantly
yes,
once you start seeing
yes.
vampires.
Well, and the thing with like the previous version of Buffy before she became the Slayer, both in the original movie and the flashback we have in Becoming, I can't remember if that's part one or two, but it's more that Buffy is kind of ditzy rather than like meme girl queen bee the way Cordelia is.
Yeah, I
Like she's
don't.
popular,
Mhm.
but she's a little more on the ditzy side than outward or actively mean.
Yeah, it's more about her being like popular because she's focused on like popular things and
Right,
clothes and
right,
fashion as opposed to
right.
being a mean girl.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Again, but she still makes that choice to go on a different path and be a different person,
Hmm.
which I think shows you, I mean, she had to have that in her all along. She just was never in an environment that allowed it to flourish. Um, so I think becoming the Slayer and the changes she experienced and then being in a new school and a new setting, it gave her the opportunity to embrace that side of herself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you would have to like really evolve. Like when a major event happens, like it allows you to be like, who do I really want to be?
Right, right,
Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, behavior change is one of the hardest things. So, kudos to her for even being able to do that.
yeah,
There are certain people who have just as good of intentions and don't always end up succeeding in making those kind of changes in their life.
it's true. I'm a terrible human being, and so
That is not true. That
I'm
is not
constant.
true.
I constantly have the best of intentions, but none of that happens.
Listeners, I disagree with with Charles's take on himself.
I stand by it.
So, because some of the other kind of general thought that I had in preparing for our conversation, which we'll probably kind of discuss throughout, is the interesting thing about them, and flaws and all. I mean, there are very good things about the friendship and very bad things about the friendship, which I know we'll delve into. But I realize when you think about it, and we've had this, the same discuss the same point in other ways in other conversations, but we only see them as teens and very early 20s.
Hmm.
So we know, again, going back to what we said before, like your brain is not fully developed, and the part that helps you to make sort of those rational decisions or understand the consequences is the part that is one of the last parts to like fully develop by the time you're 25. So it is interesting to like take a step back and remember that. Again, that doesn't mean we can't critique, can't criticize, can't hold people accountable. But it was more I had to remind myself that of that.
Yeah,
And I think when you're watching a show as well and you're not part of the what's happening, it's much easier to stand back and judge,
sure,
which
absolutely.
I can do very well of these characters. That is
I'm
not a saying I do not, but I think you do kind of have to just slightly keep that in mind. It's sort of like familiar to you applies like when we had the conversations about Xander and his romantic relationships and his trauma. Forget trauma alone. If you're just like a teen with a developing brain, um, you may not always handle like relationships, and then they obviously heighten the drama for the story and for because of the
right.
world that they live in.
Yeah, I mean you have to let that fiction sort of ride into the
Yeah,
analysis of
yeah.
everything.
Basically, when you think about it, their friendship comes together like during a war.
Well,
A-
yes. I mean,
And they're teens, and they have like no adult supervision
it's true.
except Giles, who, like, no offense, we've
Oh,
discussed
really?
this in a previous episode with him and Buffy, but Giles is not the best in, being the adult in the room either.
Well, and like the whole thing starts because no one knows what's going on, right? Because
Yeah,
it all starts with like Giles focusing so much on Buffy to be like, I need you to accept your Slayer duties.
yeah,
I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And in the midst of this, Jesse gets kidnapped,
yep,
Willow gets abducted,
right,
and Xander's like, hey, 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 can I?
yeah.
Hey, I wanna. Can Hey, what about me? Look at me, look at me, look at me. And it's like all of this chaos is happening, and she's like, I just want to get through my first day of school, you guys. I
Right.
I just got here. Can we not?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know where the bathrooms are. I'm still
Right.
trying to figure out all this stuff has to happen. Um, and even them going to go find Jesse, which drives me crazy, but I get it for the show. But like, where Xander's like, I want to go. Come here. And I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, you're not brave. You're stupid. And you're putting everybody in danger, including Jesse, who's already dead. So, like,
Oh, but
oh,
isn't he showing his Xander heart in that moment?
whatever. He's being selfish. He just wants to like show up with Buffy and be like, look what I can do, Buffy. Like, don't you, Aren't I
Well, I
brave?
think that
Aren't I strong?
yeah, I think more for Xander, I think it is a bit of it's his heart driving him, but at the same time, that fully developed brain or lack of fully developed brain is also in the way
Yeah, I mean,
because
sure,
you
he
know,
wants
he
to
just
save his friend for sure. Like,
yeah, but
that's
also like he doesn't think about the fact like, am I going to hamper her? Am I going to get in her way?
right. She
You know,
has
like
superpowers.
right,
You
she
do
knows what she's
not.
doing.
You just
Yes,
figured out vampires were real like literally 2 minutes ago.
yeah.
And now you're like, well, let's go fight them.
Yeah. And I think it's also Xander's insecurities being like, I got to do something because I don't want to be seen as the,
Right, as a
the
weakling.
wuss or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
And doesn't he say that?
So
Like, I
yeah, I
think
mean
he
their
says
whole
that to some extent. I feel like it's very much implied that he
he
doesn't want to,
does.
like, he doesn't want to
I
feel
can't remember if it was this
useless.
episode.
It's somewhere in,
Yeah, but I can't
I think it's in the Harvest or something like that when they go after Jesse.
it might be. Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, he definitely mentions that. I mean, he mentions it other times too, but definitely in one of those first episodes, for sure. So yeah, I mean that's the start of this friendship. It's a very dramatic, um, traumatic, situation that they come together. Me
Trauma
while
bonded
also
for
trying to,
life.
yeah, seriously, while trying to also just get through high school and the normal. So I think season one in a lot of ways is might be in the regular friendship stuff, the least dramatic, the least conflict, because they're still getting to know each other and they're still also, I think they're excited about the slaying and the Hellmouth. I mean, there's, sad things that happen, but they haven't really been fully traumatized by it yet. Buffy hasn't died. She, uh, Angelus hasn't come out yet. All that kind of stuff has not happened. So I think in season one is probably their most, oh, for lack of a better word, like pure form of friendship. Like when I think
Y-
about really lovely moments, like one of my favorite moments is when they watch, and if I'm getting this wrong and it's season two, I still think it applies, but is them not having like the money to go out and do anything, and there's not really much to do in Sunnydale, so they're in like Buffy's bedroom watching like Bollywood films
Oh,
on her
yeah.
little TV screen, and I it's just like that to me felt like so real. Like that was a
Yes.
real moment. That is something like we would do. It's like there's nowhere to go in our suburban town for teenagers, after like 8 o'clock at night unless you want to go to the movies. So what are we gonna do? And like we've spent our allowance, so it's like I can't even afford a movie ticket. What are we gonna do? Let's just hang out at someone's house and
And
watch bad movies or B movies or whatever.
and also the fact too, I mean, again, this goes back to like them not being able to like license other properties to watch or whatever.
Yeah,
Which is why they're watching Bollywood films.
right.
But it is interesting to be like we're in like this is a small town too, and
Yeah.
so what like clearly like maybe there's not cable or like satellite. I don't know, but you're watching like it's the most mundane thing that you could possibly do. Um,
Yeah, well, it might
which
be one
they
of
don't
those things.
ever get to. They don't ever
Right,
get to do.
right. I mean, it's probably one of those things where like they have cable for the downstairs TV, but like Joyce is down there watching.
Right.
And Buffy's lucky to have like this little small TV in her room, but you just get because I think it even had like rabbit ears or antennas on it. So you're just getting whatever is coming over the antenna.
Because for those of you who are not
Yes.
familiar, back in the day, TV, and you just had like an antenna and you had like what we called rabbit ears were the two antennas sticking up.
Yeah, like another example of that is like when they're hanging out at the Bronze, quote unquote, studying in school hard. And then Xander's like, come on, let's dance. You've been studying for like all of 10 minutes. Like that also felt very real.
Yes.
It's just like that is any teen across America, like you could see doing that.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
and those are some of my favorite moments because I think maybe that is part of the issue with their relationships as you go into later seasons. And it's so much about the trauma and so much about the Hellmouth and the fight that you don't have those normal moments anymore that ground the show and ground the relationships.
Yeah, because everything just becomes so much about the slaying and the monsters and the demons, especially as like, Willow starts getting more into magic and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. Like all of like the real world falls away so much more
Hmm.
as you go on. And we don't have those just like casual moments of them hanging out. You know, we there might be some references to it, sort of like as an this happened off screen sort
Right.
of situation, but we never really get to see a lot of, some of those happy moments. Yeah.
So when do you think, as we move, through the high school years, which we're, again, we're kind of breaking it down based on the seasons because there are sort of those natural groupings and transition points. Do you think does it start to change in the high school years, or is it really only once they're out of high school? Like what's your take on that? And we can get into the dead man's party of it all.
Well, okay, so my thought is this, right? Is that it does change a little bit. And it changes in a weird way for me because I feel like at a certain point, season two, basically, um, where we start getting into all of this stuff, season two, season three, is where I think Willow and Xander actually start to take Buffy for granted,
Mm.
as a friend. And I think they feel a little put upon over everything that like she shuts them out, all of this other stuff.
I do agree that Xander and Willow start to take Buffy for granted, but I think part of that is particularly when she sleeps with Angel and he turns into a jealous. That is where like that is the first big hit that Buffy takes. I mean, minus losing her first watcher, but I feel like they never really delve into that as like a traumatic moment in her life. It's like kind of everything before the show starts is sort of just swept away.
Yeah, for sure.
So it probably should have been something like that lingered or was mentioned, or she was hesitant to build a relationship with Giles because of having lost Merrick. So putting that aside, what happens with Angel and Jealous is really like that first big hit she has to take. And her way of dealing from there on out is to close in on herself. She shuts herself down. And she gets called out for that eventually. I mean, you can understand why she does it. Again, this is where like you need an adult and a therapist in your life to help you deal with that. So I don't blame her for that reaction. It's very logical. In a way, it's you can understand going into that self-defense mode emotionally. So I think that doesn't help. But I think, I would say with both Xander and Willow, it's also the problem is you have this weird situation where you're like really good, you're best friends with this girl, but at the same time, she's sort of your general. I mean, Buffy does it in a new way where she's trying to build it through community and so that she's still a leader, but she's really bringing everyone in the fold with their ideas and their help. But in the end of the day, she's going to take that like final leadership role. And sometimes it really only can come down to her, at least the way the show is set up in those first 7 seasons. So I think it's this weird thing that I don't think they ever figure out how to deal with, maybe until the end.
Well, and not
So
until the very, very end,
well, yeah, that's
even.
what I'm saying, like
Sure,
the
yeah.
very end. And then you have, I think, the resentment building between Xander not having magic powers and Willow trying to develop magic powers and seeing Buffy being like, guys, I'm the one with the experience. I've got to take the lead on this. So I think all of that, it's not surprising that there is that resentment and that conflict building in their relationship. I mean, again, we need some good adults and good therapists to help them
Well, yeah, I mean
figure this out.
I mean there is so much resentment that goes
Yeah.
on with that. I mean, and it's it's clear with Xander. It's clear like Willow. I mean, in season six, Willow says it. She's like, I've been the sidekick
Yeah.
for all this time, even though she is a powerful witch. And that's great. But ultimately, all of this happened. None of that would have happened without Buffy. Her showing up in
Mm-hmm.
your life
Yep.
changed your life in a way that you could not have foreseen. And while you appreciate her for it and you stand by her for it, you also resent her for it.
Yes. Agreed.
And I mean, those are some complex feelings. I mean, own your feelings,
You
but
know,
also it's one of those things that it's like, as a mature person or trying to like work through those things, I know two things can be true at once, but at some point you have to make a choice
yeah.
of, are you going to hold on to that resentment? Or
Yeah.
are you going to just let go and be like, but this is what we've accepted to do, and this is how this is set up. So we need to just fall in line and make that happen because she keeps saving your lives and she keeps doing this over and over again. You know the formula works.
Well, I mean, that clearly comes to a head in Empty Places. And Buffy says that. I know I'm jumping ahead to season 7, but
Yeah,
it
let's
ties
just go
into your
for it.
point. I mean, and we can I actually have something to circle back to those high school years. And when she says it, you're like, you're so flippin' right. I mean, Buffy may have made mistakes in that battle, but she has proven time and time again, like there is no reason they should doubt her. That,
Yeah,
she may not have presented her idea to go back to the winery in the right way. Like she probably just should have pulled the core Scoobies out and had a meeting with them, the way she did before she took on the Turok Khan and they all talked inside their heads.
right.
But I was like, oh my God, you all have no legs to stand on. Buffy is so right in everything that she's saying. Like, yeah, that moment is such a pinnacle of you guys are crappy, crappy friends.
Yeah.
And you are letting your fear and your resentment take over. And,
You,
I want to be like, that's why I'm always want to be like, F you.
and you're bringing up Aldous. That's what it is. It's like you're bringing
Yes.
Aldous into this new conversation
Yes.
that doesn't apply
Yeah.
because everything and and Spike says it best, and that's when Spike comes back with Andrew, and he when he finds out she's been kicked out, he's like, "You ungrateful
Yeah.
lot! Like she has died for you twice."
Yeah.
She has done so much for you. And like the fact that you have kicked her out of her own home, a home that none of you are paying rent for. You
Nope.
ungrateful people. Like you are eating food and using her power and her water, and none of you paid a mortgage bill. Like,
Hmm.
oh, I get so livid. I get
I am with you.
so
Like,
mad
preach,
every time
preach,
I think
preach.
about it.
I
My
know.
blood pressure literally goes up every time I think about it because if someone did this to me, I literally would be like, you have got to be crazy. You would not, I would have fought every single one of them and kicked them all out of my house if they tried to kick me out of my house like that.
Hmm.
It would
Hmm.
have been a fight. Like it would have been a throwdown.
Yeah,
Every
I
like
know.
it just makes me so mad. And Dead Man's Party is kind of the same way. I understand it a little bit more because they're just frustrated because they were like, we wanted you to talk to us. But again, here's the thing. If you wanted your friend if I wanted to talk to you, I would be like, hey, I really want to talk to you about something that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Dead Man's Party doesn't make me as mad, A, as it used to, thanks to Empty Places.
Right,
That
because
is,
Empty
Empty
Places
Places
trumps everything.
trumps 100%. And as I've gotten older and I like take a look at it, it's still like one of my least favorite episodes. Most of the time I will honestly skip it. But, in my last rewatch, I was like, okay, I have to watch all the episodes because we're going to be talking about the series. And it didn't make me as mad. I actually saw their side more than I have ever before. Like I saw um particularly Willow and Joyce's perspective. And I do think Buffy is at fault to some degree because she doesn't really try hard enough either
Sure, yeah.
to make it happen. So, that one doesn't make me as mad anymore. It kind of probably makes me a little more sad. Um, but
Absolutely.
more
Yeah.
so from the adult's perspective too, because again, they're kids. I get it. They're going through a lot. Like, sometimes it's easier to be passive aggressive when you're like, don't want to deal with conflict. I totally get that. And
Mhm.
especially at that age, it's sort of a natural fallback. But yeah, I mean,
I do feel like for Joyce, especially for Dead Man's Party, I feel like Joyce has much more of a leg to stand on. It's her daughter and that relationship.
yeah,
And she owns that she screwed up. She's like, I
right,
messed up. I did not
right.
handle that well. I'm forgive me for not being perfect in that moment. So but I just, yeah. And maybe Willow too, to some extent. But like yeah, everyone else,
Yeah.
it doesn't really work for me. I mean,
One,
I get it, but
yeah. Feel like we're ready to move into season 4. You
yeah,
have
I guess
anything
so.
else to say
I
on
know.
the high school years?
On the high school years, I think we've covered quite a bit on the high school years.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is that I there are moments throughout those early seasons that I think are really lovely moments between Buffy and Willow. And shows a beautiful friendship. Because I
Yes.
remember I would watch things and they'd be talking in the cemetery or they'd be holding hands like, just as friends. And I felt like that feels like my girl friendships in my
Hmm.
life. That felt familiar. It didn't feel like TV friendship or, something I wouldn't recognize that you only see somebody's scripts in a, TV show or movie. It felt like you could transpose that to real life and it would look totally normal. At least to my experience. I mean, to other people it may seem not at all, but again, we all have different experiences. But for me, that felt like true girl friendship.
Yeah, I mean, there is that thing like after Angel, like in season three, when like Angel breaks up with her,
Yes. Oh,
and she's just sitting there with Willow on the bed, and she's like, I can't breathe, and I can't,
yep.
and she crumples into Willow, and like that's a lovely moment of friendship where Willow is just
So
there
good.
for Buffy, you know.
Yep.
Um, and there's times too, like even after the breakup of everything, where Buffy is there for them during,
Hmm.
during their breakup and all of that stuff. I mean, there are definitely times where they support each other on a
Yeah. Yeah.
personal level outside of anything of the slang or just, being there as a Scooby, but being there as a friend. So, I mean, they
Correct.
do have those moments for sure.
So I actually, when I think about this, in a lot of ways, think season four is the most normal in their friendship.
Hmm.
Normal in the sense of this looks like what you would see in everyday life, in that
Sure. Yeah.
college is a transition. There's that friction between, people who have a natural fit going into college, people who struggle, trying to keep high school friendships while you're moving into college, developing new both friendships and romantic relationships. And the fact that, then one friend isn't going to college, like all of that felt very real. And in fact, even there, when Spike gets them riled up and they have their fight, was it in the Yoko factor?
And they, okay, yeah.
That actually felt fine to me. I mean, I'm sorry that they're fighting, but that felt like there was a legitimate cause for it, even though, part of it is that Spike stirs it up. So anyway, compared to like some of the other seasons, that felt the most realistic, most grounded in reality to me.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, it's very much, like people's college experiences. Like you
Hmm.
don't necessarily maintain the friendships with your friends from high school when you're in college. But yeah, the relationship between them in season four really, I think I would agree with that. Like it just feels very natural to what would happen to a
Yeah,
group of friends, even though they're all sort of going to the same school or not going to school.
but still in Sunnydale. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, even anytime any of their conflict feels more like it feels more about their regular relationships and not anything related to the supernatural elements of their work and their relationships.
Yeah. And honestly, even in like when you're looking through season four, there is no conflict in their relationships except that they are not having relationships with each other. It's that they're
True,
having
true.
relationships with other people.
Yeah.
And so that's what, that the Yoko factor gives that divide for them to be like, well, you're not paying attention to me. But here's the thing, all of you were enjoying the fact
Hmm.
that you were separated from each other.
Yeah. The only one
And
who might not be is Giles.
right, poor Giles. Yeah.
It just like the three younger friends are redefining their friendship as they move into college and adult life. They're having to do that with Giles as well and not see
Yeah.
him just as, the grown up in the room. Which is kind of what they're still treating him like, as if, he's responsible for being the only grown up in the room. And it's like,
Right.
no, you guys are becoming that now too.
And there is something of like becoming sort of a peer.
Right,
When you
right.
leave college or when you
Mhm.
leave high school, you start having, which even though it's weird, like I remember teachers being like, "Well, now that you're gone, like I'm not your teacher anymore."
Yeah.
So now I can, especially in college, like after college, they were like, I am no longer your professor. I am your peer now. Yeah, I think season four really provides, I think you're right. Season four really provides sort of the most. natural evolution of like real world friendship outside of
Hmm.
slaying.
Yeah.
And the slaying just happened to be sort of secondary to everything else that was happening. Because when you look at season four in terms of what they dealt with, it was so far, I don't know, it just like in terms of interpersonal relationships, I think it just felt much further removed from the supernatural stuff. I mean, yes, you're dealing with Adam and you're dealing with the initiative and all of that stuff.
Yeah, because you didn't have the high school is hell
Yeah,
element in college or, real life. It became much more separated. You're right. It wasn't like you had the initiative stuff going on, but it wasn't like on the one-off episodes or the B storylines. You had, something happening in the college that showed college life as hell.
yeah, there wasn't that same chaos. And so all of those
Right.
one-off things were more focused on building relationships
Hmm.
between these new characters that we're
Right.
introducing.
It would have been really interesting for, and again, you saw it for a hot minute with Buffy and oh my God, the Pedro
Pedro Pascal's.
Pascal's
Yeah.
character who's Eddie. You saw that with Eddie. And I was like, "Oh my God, they had such great chemistry. I'm so mad they killed off Eddie. They should have kept Eddie. Killed off another character or something with Sunday's group." And it would have been so cool to watch Buffy become friends with this guy. Like not have any romantic or maybe down the line they're like friends for a while and it turns romantic. I think that could have been interesting to explore as well. But they actually get the chance to like know each other and become friends. Or it turns out, he's gay and so they're just friends that way. Like whatever it is, it would have been really interesting to have just friendships develop in
Yeah.
season four and not or have that in addition to the romantic relationships. Do we feel like we need to discuss the fight and Yoko factor
Oh,
since
I
we've
mean, if
discussed
you,
Dead Man's Party?
yeah, I
No,
mean,
I
if
mean
you want
again, I'm
to.
not resentful. I'm not resentful of that one. That one doesn't make my
No, that
blood
one doesn't
boil.
bother me as much. Like it's a
Yeah, that one feels like earned.
yes, it's very much earned. I think
Yeah.
that argument is very much earned and it's very much needed to
Yes.
and it's one of those things that unlike, I will say this, unlike Dead Man's Party and Empty Places, Yoko Factor, that fight between them is earned. They have the fight and then they resolve the issues and apologize to each other. It's
Ding,
the
ding, ding, ding,
only
ding.
time where they actually like go through the process of what you're supposed to do when you have a fight with your friend. And it's like, that's why it doesn't make me angry because they actually resolve everything.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
saying that just
it's,
made me realize the same thing. Like that's why it doesn't make me angry.
yeah,
It's earned. They apologize, they resolve, and then they join together in the most like kick-ass way and
right.
stop the enemy.
It's the best fight that they ever have.
100%.
And yeah, so yes, so to that, kudos to, thanks, Spike.
Exactly.
Boom.
Good job, Spike.
Good job, Spike. You did a good thing.
Yeah. So moving into the last three seasons, I think is where you really see that transition from friendship to family, where they become that chosen family. It doesn't mean they get rid of their issues, but I think they do become much more like a family because they step up for each other in ways that we expect family to do, whether it's biological or found. And, the situation with Donna and Joyce is really, to me, the impetus for that shift in their relationship.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it makes sense that they would, right? It totally makes sense that they would step
Yeah.
up and take care of Dawn and sort of be her guardians and caregivers, even though, you know, I guess with the Buffy bot, that's why that works, because I was like, otherwise it doesn't really work any other way. She would have been put into the system.
Well, that's going into season six. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
the even I don't know because even in five, I think well, I mean, yes, I would say yes, they are kind of forming into family, but I think again that kind of only happen. I mean, that's really gets solidified in family in season five,
agreed.
Where Buffy sort of again takes the reins for
Hmm.
someone who is not her, who quote unquote is not her friend
Yeah.
for a person who she doesn't really know at all. And the only
Hmm.
thing that she knows is that, well, this is my best friend's girlfriend. They've probably hung out a couple of times, but like on screen, Buffy and Tara don't really have a relationship. And so the
Right.
fact that Buffy stands up for her and is like, I don't care what's going on, you got to get through us to get through that. Like that. So yeah, so at that moment, it's a thing where yes, Buffy is choosing these people in her family to be a part of her
Yeah,
family.
and I think it's a combo of her stepping up because of her friendship with Willow and knowing how much Tara means to Willow, but also because it's the right thing to do.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it's one of, she's mm, in that moment deciding that Tara is part of our tribe.
Yeah.
She's not just Willow's girlfriend.
Yeah. And and there's the issue of, these people are clearly being abusive to her. So like you're
Oh
saying,
yeah,
like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the right thing to do, like to be like, we need to separate her from you, and if that so that means we will take her on,
Mhm.
and that's okay. And that we will do.
Yes.
And Dawn will she's a biter, so watch
Yeah,
it.
but I do think when Buffy is having to deal with Joyce's illness, that her friends up in a way that really shows there is true friendship between all of them. You never get the sense that they're resentful. They're all trying to do as much as possible. I mean, that's from Tara to Willow to Xander to Giles. Okay, maybe not Anya, because Anya's still learning it, I feel
Right.
like. But also
Anya
that goes
doesn't get
back
it.
to our we don't know exactly who Anya is. Not us, as in the writer's room. But yeah, I think that's a really those are some really great moments and shows that there is, like I said, there's a legitimacy, there's a truth to their friendship. It isn't just trauma bonding. There's legitimate friendship between them that's developed over the years. Um, that was brought about by the supernatural, but I think can exist in spite of the supernatural.
Yeah, because it would be the same thing as if Buffy, like having any kind of other job or any sort of other responsibility, they do show up in season 5 and are like, hey, let's take something
Hmm.
off your plate, right?
Yeah.
Sure, we can watch Dawn, we can do stuff with Dawn, um, because we know you have to deal with your mom and you need to focus on that, or you got to go out on patrol, or, Glory is doing something weird and so yeah,
Hmm.
go take care of that and we will hold down the fort here, and take care of that. Which again is what you would expect your best friends to do. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm going to speak in rough draft here for a moment because in all of this, I guess they wouldn't have to do this, but like honestly, if you have been friends that long and this stuff is going on, and like you've been that close for that long, Joyce getting sick, I, I don't know. For me, my expectation would be that yes, you should do all of that stuff. Like that's a give me. Like they are not they're not going above and beyond. I mean, they're stepping up and doing what they should be, but it's not like they're going out of their way to do anything that they shouldn't be doing as really good friends like that. I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah, it does. I
or if
totally
they,
get what you're
I mean,
saying.
or
I
if they
mean, I think
could
it's
do
just,
more. I don't know if they could have done more.
yeah, I mean, I think it's just your perspective and experience. I don't think, we say that that should be the like expectation or the expectation, but I guess it should be, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I think in a normal friendship, like, I wouldn't always expect that of all of my friends. But given their
But yeah,
situation
like
and how
those,
much they go
hmm
through together, like the least you could do is bring me some soup. Like, I mean, I don't know. Um, I think yeah, but also in that. in the same breath, which is why I'm struggling with this, because at the same time, like, I don't think that there's anything more they could have done. Like,
No,
I think they did everything they could have done for Buffy during that time.
yeah, I would agree. I mean, yeah, I'm not critical of them and their actions. I mean, I think they show how close they all are
Yeah,
by the way they step up, and that they're more than just friends. It's a deep friendship, but it's family as well. It's chosen family, helping out the biological family.
right.
Um, and I think it's a strong contrast to Riley and
Uh,
what he does.
he's the one who doesn't show up. Ugh.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
season
But I think
five.
that
He's the
shows
one who
that.
check Yeah, he's the one who checks out in season five. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you just saying his name, that just
We
God.
won't go there. We've been there already.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because I just into the woods. Just I just the man.
If you want to hear us rant about it, listen to our Buffy romantic relationships episode.
Yes. Or you can go to my TikTok page and listen to me there
Okay,
because I do a
apparently.
whole rant about that too. Because it infuri that's like, I think between Empty Places, I don't know which one makes me more angry, Empty Places or Into the Woods. I don't know which
Yeah,
one
I'm with you.
like makes my blood boil more. Between Riley and Xander gaslighting her, just like I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. Let it go, Charles. Let it go. It's not real.
Yeah, and then moving into season six, I mean, okay, as far as friendship goes, I agree that Xander, Willow, all of them of Buffy's peer group, for the most part, step up after Buffy dies. Giles fails, 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 fails. I know we've discussed this somewhat
Yes.
in the Giles Buffy episode that has already come out, but I mean, it bears repeating in this situation that for all of the ways that Xander and Willow in particular screw up in season six, they do show up, particularly once, when Buffy has died. Now I do think part of the reason that I think Willow does want to bring her back is because they have been burdened with this responsibility, both of trying to keep Sunnydale safe and trying to take care of Dawn. And I can understand how that would suck because it's not anything you were expecting at your age. And it's a place that Giles 100% could have stepped up as needed. If nothing else, just to get Hank Summers' butt back to Sunnydale, and take care of Dawn. I know, it's not what Dawn wants, but at the same time, it's a crappy situation. And sometimes that might have been the better action to take. But yeah, and then of course they all get caught up in their own emotional traumas and dramas and the messiness that is season six.
Yeah, so this is where I will, because they did everything wrong. In season six, everything is wrong. What,
Yeah,
like, Hank doesn't know his daughter is dead? That feels really weird and crazy for
yeah,
you to be like, why would you not do that? It is a terrible idea. Even though
yeah.
he's an absentee father, I get it. But come on, you guys. I understand I'm so grateful that we have season six and seven. Absolutely. But like,
Hmm.
we don't tell, as your friend, you don't tell your parent, like your friend's parent that you've died, then knowing what she went through and everything that you would, Willow, are you telling me that you think your friend who saved the world a lot because you put that on her tombstone went to a hell dimension? Like
Yeah,
that to me, that is such a like that is your selfishness and your like denial being like the thing, like the driving force. Like you are grieving in such a way, and I get it. You're grieving in such a way where you're like, I want my friend back. I need my friend back. The world needs her. We need her to fight. We're not as good as her. But like, and your justification for that is that she's in hell. Even though she is not a bad person and she's been doing nothing but saving the world. Like the
and
idea behind that doesn't make any sense to me.
well, and by the logic saying that, and Angela/Angel was sent to hell dimension, but his body went with him.
Right.
Her body was left
Was
behind.
left behind. Right. Like
Why
it's
would
not
her soul be in a hell dimension?
exactly. None of that makes sense. So it's clearly Willow's grief
Yes.
that's driving all of this. And
Yeah.
so again, you're not I'm sorry that you're hurting, but you're not being a good friend to me to let me go.
Hmm.
Especially when I tell you and I send a message through my sister's, so I don't know if Dawn said anything or not, but she
Yeah.
said, tell them I figured it out.
Right.
Like, I'm okay. She says that in season 5. I'm okay. I got this. This is what I'm supposed to do. But you all need to live on without me. That is what I want you to do. Those are my dying words to you, and you won't honor those. Instead, you rip me out of heaven.
Yeah, I mean that's why it comes to, you know, ahead at the end of season 6. But that shows the developing selfish, self-centered side of Willow that is so also power hungry because of
Yeah.
her insecurities. That's a driving factor for sure. And also just to the point of like the way they try to hide Buffy's death. Why did they put a gravestone?
Right. Why is there a gravestone if we're trying to hide the fact that she's dead? It
Yeah.
doesn't like that's a continuity issue that
Yeah.
that kind of you know
Well,
that
because they weren't sure season 6 was coming back, so you
right, they were
wanted to
still in
show.
negotiations or
Yeah.
whatever. If it's but it's just yeah, it's one of those things
Yeah.
that it's like, come on, guys.
True. True,
It's
true,
not like
true.
it was like in the backyard or anything. It was fully in the Sunnydale graveyard.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's just so many things about that. And there like and the fact that everyone else was like, no, we're not because honestly, at the end of the day, even Xander who was like, are we sure we want to do this? Should we be doing this? You could have just said no to Willow. What was she going to actually do to you if you were like, no, I'm not going?
Yeah, the one that really in some ways surprises me is Tara.
Yeah,
But again, I think the whole point is Xander overly trusts Willow, so he wasn't going to speak up. Tara is still a little too shy. She's still finding that inner strength, which she doesn't happen until a few months down the road after the
yeah,
horrible things that Willow does to her. And then Anya has been told to shut up too many times. So, she
yeah,
doesn't really, I feel like she's not going to speak up. Although, again, you would think Anya, with all her experience, would be like, this could go very badly. Like, this is very dark magic.
right.
I mean, and I could still see them pushing past her, but I feel like she could have been the voice of protest and
Hmm.
they still could have actually gotten her back. Like, because Willow would be like, whatever, I don't listen to you. Um,
Yeah, and I think Tara, and I think for Tara, I think it was a situation of she knows how dangerous it is, and she knows that that Willow's just going to do this regardless, and so she needs somebody there to protect her and to be her anchor,
yeah.
and all of that. But I mean, but it seems like it's one of those things like it felt like all of them needed to be there, but not really. Like it's very unclear. Like, did she really need all of them to be there to do that? Or was she just gonna like if none of them showed up, was she just gonna do it anyway?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I got the sense of like maybe she was pulling on their magic,
Oh, on their energy. Yeah,
on their
maybe.
energy in order
Yeah.
to do it. That's the only thing that makes sense because otherwise it was basically Willow doing everything.
Yeah. They
But
were
that was
just like
when,
holding candles or whatever.
yeah, but I think weren't they holding hands because at one point when it's getting really scary and like this comes out, Tara, like Xan's about to break, and Tara's like, no, Willow told me it has to keep going. Don't break,
Yeah, don't break the
the
circle.
spell.
Yeah.
The
That they're
circle.
not
Yeah. So
supposed
I
to
think they
break the
were
circle.
holding
Yeah.
hands,
Yeah, it's
right? Or at least,
yes.
yeah, in the circle. So I think there's an energy.
It's a pulling of yeah, maybe that's what it is, a pulling of the energy. So it makes it anyway, regardless, I think, yeah, it's like there's just a lot of selfishness, I think, when it comes to their friendship. going through there. I mean, and it makes some sense to, in the grand scheme of things, dealing with like the Willow addiction storyline and all of that stuff.
Yes, correct.
You know, where
Agreed. Yeah, I
where
mean
like
that
she's leaning into that and that like not thinking about how her actions are going to impact other people.
right. And I mean I think the real driving factor is more selfishness to bring Buffy back than I mean I do think she wants her friend back, but behind that it's the she doesn't want to be the one responsible for this slaying. She doesn't want to be responsible for Dawn.
Mm,
So her solution is to do like super dark magic and resurrect your dead friend. Like,
That's a
what?
hot take. That's a hot take. I like it though. I mean, I think there's a,
I mean, I think it's to me it's a interpretation. I don't necessarily think it's text.
right.
But there's
No.
elements in the text.
That's what makes it
Um,
such a hot take, Kate.
oh, thank
Yes.
you.
Like the fact that she doesn't want to be
Yeah, I mean,
responsible for
yeah,
Dawn.
I think she likes the leadership, obviously, because even Spike calls her out on that, like, oh, you're getting a little too much, enjoying the power too much. But that being said, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with Buffy's, both her personal and her Slayer roles.
Right.
And I have a feeling that Willow's like, I only want to do this for so long.
I think she wanted to do it as long as the money was coming in. And when the money
Yeah.
ran out, she was like, you know what? Let's bring Buffy back because
Yeah.
we've run out of the insurance money. That's what
Yeah.
happened.
Hmm.
She said the insurance ran out, and therefore Buffy needs to come back because I can't afford this.
Here's where a missed opportunity in season 6 is for the fact that we could have discussed this in the Buffy Giles episode, but it relates to this, and he's also, con consider him a friend and family, so it fits in this episode. But the fact that the actor wanted to reduce his time, fine, understand. Instead of him just abandoning her, he could have gone to fight for her with the council to get a salary, like a wardrobe fee, pay off her house, health care, because we don't have health care. Like
Right.
I could have seen Giles doing that and having to like work his way and fight, and he could report in every so often, like how it's going. But in the end, gets it for her. Like she still has to do all the other stuff in the meantime because she still needs money. So she still has to work at the Double Meat Palace. But like in the end, he comes through for her because he should have, damn it.
Or here's another option. Why not
Yeah.
make her the owner of the magic box? Why give it to Anya? Like, let
Yeah.
Anya be the manager or whatever, but like some of that profit could have gone into Buffy.
Agreed, but like Buffy's job is being the Slayer, so the Watchers Council should pay her. I mean, I know we don't
Sure.
want her to like take money from the patriarchy, but that being said, Giles gets paid, all the Watchers get paid. Why the hell is she not getting paid?
Right. She should have gotten paid from the Watchers Council.
Yes.
But
Oh,
since
but
she
you're saying like
wasn't,
in the in between time,
but
he
like
could
in
have
between
given
time,
her.
like
Yeah, good
why
point.
is it? Because like she's there. I mean, she's not like working, but they're all like kind of hanging out, kind of working, but not really. She didn't have to work at the Double Meat Palace. Like she could have
No.
been work. She could like, and even the whole thing of like, oh well, let me work here and try to do this in Life Serial when there she's like, oh well, let me try to work
Yeah.
here as a job, and they make it seem like she can't do retail. It's like, come on.
Yeah,
She
she
can
could do it.
totally do it. She was being messed with. And also, all of y'all do is just hang out there anyway. Like, no one's
Yeah.
really working there. But you've given it to Anya once you've left when it was like, you've known Anya for like 2 years. This has been, she's your slayer.
Yeah.
You should have like cut her in on those profits.
I mean, he could
Boo,
have given it
Giles,
to
boo.
her and Anya to co-manage,
Yeah.
But
See,
such a
not
missed
good friends.
opportunity.
Not good friends. Just how.
Well, I mean, season 6 is, they always say it's the, life is the big bad, but I'm like, I'm sorry. I think selfishness is the big bad in season 6.
Yeah. Because everyone's
I,
just out for themselves.
yeah. And honestly, I mean, all of them have like legitimate issues. Don't get me wrong, but like
Sure.
nobody has legitimate issues more than Buffy, maybe second to that, Dawn.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
yes. But yeah, everyone else is going through their own thing. But Buffy died again and
Mhm.
had to be So,
Yeah. So then
um,
we move into season 7, which starts off sweet. You've got the faux family situation of mom, dad, and kid with Buffy, Xander, and Dawn.
yeah,
Which actually I think those moments are nice. I don't feel like they're overly trying to force it or tell us that, oh, this is the direction we're gonna go. It's gonna be Xander and Buffy getting together, even though behind the scenes, apparently that's what Nick and Sarah were asking for.
I'm really glad that I did not.
Yeah, me too.
Correct.
For mul-
Historically,
for multiple reasons.
for
But
multiple reasons, and like that would not have aged well, I don't think.
no, I
Um,
agree. I agree. But one of my favorite moments between Buffy and Willow is in season 7 at the end of Same Time, Same Place when
oh
Willow's
yeah,
trying to heal herself and Buffy comes up and just gives her her hands. And it's such a nice moment,
yeah,
especially after the hell of season 6 that they reconnect in such a lovely way and in Buffy's old bedroom. So it ties back to their high school friendship, but
yes.
how far they've come and at the start, how much they've grown. We
And
may
Buffy's old
question
bedroom.
that. We may question their growth as we get into season 7, but
And
in
at
that
least
moment,
it's Willow in there now as opposed to Buffy and her, yeah, the fact that Buffy didn't get the master bedroom also in season 6, it's a little weird too after she comes back.
yeah,
Um
I mean, that made sense to me because, Willow and Tara had stepped up and it was already that way. And I think Buffy, it also was a sign to me that said Buffy wasn't ready, willing, able to take on that mom adult role. And so in season 7, she is. And so she's got the primary bedroom now.
right.
Um, it kind of, there are layers there in that decision.
But yeah, I mean in seasons I think as we go through season 7, I think I mean honestly, I do think the friendship is for the most part okay.
Hmm.
I mean, I think there's a lot of unresolved issues for sure that kind of linger throughout
Yeah.
that again all sort of blow up, at the end here.
Hmm.
But ultimately it's one of those things that they don't even have time to be friends with each other because there's so much other stuff going on.
Yes, agreed.
Like there's so many characters that are thrown in that their friendship then becomes secondary to everything else. Actually, it becomes like the third thing on the list
Agreed.
after the potentials and then her relationship with Spike. And then
Right.
it's all of them. Like,
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Well, it also doesn't help that Buffy feels like she's in the ultimate fight of her life because she's fighting something incorporeal. How do you stop that if there's not like a physical body to kill?
mhm.
And it has like these, tough as nails vampires she has to fight, proto vampires. And so you have Willow who's all hesitant about her powers. I mean, rightfully so, obviously, based on what she did at the end of season 6. So that doesn't help. So she's, being hesitant about everything. Then you've got Spike being hesitant about everything. Again, understandably so. And then you've got Giles just being terrible and just riding her and putting all this pressure on her without actually helping her. And then you have all these young girls looking up to you, and expecting you to save the day.
Hmm.
And so, then again, Buffy really goes into that cuts herself off, goes internal, and only relies on Spike because basically she feels like he's giving her what she needs in spite of what happened between them recently. So again, it's sort of like the cauldron of hot mess bubbles over
Well,
as you get into the middle and end of season 7.
and it's one of those things where it's like, here you all are. And she says this to Spike. She was like, I need the Spike who was dangerous, who was a killer. I need that guy who was there, who had been there like the entire time, basically up until seeing red. And then he like becomes this very different person. Like everybody, she was like, this is like you're saying, like, this is the biggest fight of my life. And what I need all of y'all from like 2 seasons ago, not
Hmm.
these like weak, watered down versions of you all you all have gone through because you all have gone through a traumatic moment that you've gone something terrible has happened and la 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 la. You all get to like check out for, and I'm about to sort of cover myself here. You all get to check out for like weeks and months at a time with all of this stuff. I go catatonic one time and
Yeah.
every for like an episode and everyone freaks out. But you all are not there for multiple, like for months at a time. You all are at your like, wallowing in your trauma and you're like, oh, I can't do it. I can't. Oh, la la la. I killed people. Oh, I was a bad person. I don't have time for that. And you know why I know I don't have time for that? Because when I was at my lowest moment, when my mom died and my sister was kidnapped, and I felt like I let all of that stuff happen, you were like, everyone was like, you have to snap out of this, Buffy. We need you. You have to. So I don't get to rest because you all always depend on me. And so, but I have to drag you all along when I'm like, I need you all. It's an imbalance of friendship. It's not a balanced relationship.
Yeah, I think I agree. I do think as much as, I'm a Buffy defender and Buffy stan, some of it lays on Buffy. She could voice her needs. I don't think she just is like, tough it up, suck it up, Buttercup, let's go. And I think there is a way that she could approach it that doesn't have to be that way. But, there's some tough love in there, but also is like, this is what I need. I need you to be this because, but also listen to what the other person needs, and I think they feel like in this, everything's spiraling, the the danger is building with the first evil, so they feel like they can't take the time. But the whole thing is then the point of what we get to in the solution for fighting the first is Buffy shares her power. And so she wasn't doing that. And in that, not only does she share her power, but she talks to her friends in a way that they used to do back in the library in those early days of high school. And it's, what do you think? What's your input? And she takes all that and turns it into the solution, which is what she used to do. And I think they've got away from over the years where she hardened and her friends became more demanding on her. And so it all, again, explodes in empty places. I don't think it's fair the way it explodes in empty places, and I am much more on Buffy's side than anyone else's. But that
Mhm.
being said, she's not without fault either.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that point of view.
I mean, most of the time I'm always like, I'm on Buffy's.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And you saying that, I'm like, huh, that's an interesting point to like look at it from that perspective. And it's also one of those things where it's like, again, it's putting the onus on Buffy to be like, oh, okay, well, but, and again, it just goes to prove her point that even in that, she was like, I always have to be better than everyone
Yeah.
else in order
Yes.
to get it done. And I
Yes.
don't
That
have
I
the
would agree.
luxury,
Yeah.
I don't have the luxury of like being imperfect or not communicating like in the best possible way to you where I have to like be like,
Hmm.
okay, well, let's talk, like, which is a healthy way of communicating and all that stuff. But sometimes it's like, dude, but no one else talks to her like that. Like, no one else gives her that benefit of communication with that, not very often, especially in the later seasons. And so it's like it's always up to her to take it on. And then when people are mad about how she's t doing things because it's not the way that they would do it, then there's this big coup that happens. And it's like, what's going on here, people? None of this makes sense. So again, so yes, I do see that though. I do see that because she does come back later on and it's like, hey, Giles, what do you think?
Yeah. Oh, he's the one who deserves that question the least.
Yeah.
Um, in my opinion. But yes.
But she comes up with
And
a
she,
plan and doesn't like she's like, "Hey, so this is my plan." But that's the thing. She comes up with a plan to like release the power to give the power to everybody, and she tells Willow like, "This is what I need you to do."
right, but I think she's also more encouraging towards Willow and saying, I believe in you. I know you can do this. I'm not scared that you're going to go dark Willow on me. So, there's a kinder approach to
But I
it.
think she's been doing that the whole entire season. Like all of that, like anytime that Willow uses her powers in season seven, it's always been like, I need you to do this, and I am checking in with you and be like, hey, are we good? Because I need this. right now, as opposed to asking her to do it like for all, like instead of being like, use your power for all the small things, I'm only asking you to do it for like the big stuff. I need you to put up a barrier to protect us so that we can do this. I need you to do this part. Like she never asked her to do anything like they don't need her to do, you know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think with Willow coming from such a place where the darkness is so strong in her, and then you're on a Hellmouth. Buffy never really asked her to do small things. She was always only asking her to do the big things. So I think it's not that Buffy couldn't have asked those things of her, even as Willow is still finding her footing again and, a sense of inner strength. I do think it comes as more of a demand than maybe it needed to be. And I get why Buffy is doing that, but I do think there were times where she could have done it in a more supportive, understanding way versus like, we need this now. The eternal struggle during those 7 seasons in their friendship, particularly in the peer group friendship between Xander and Willow and Buffy, is balancing that her being the Slayer and being the warrior and taking the lead. And really, that the past setup has been to be isolated, and she's breaking that and paving new ground by letting these people into her life and working with them as not only friends, but sort of, colleagues, for lack of a better word. And there's always the friction there. And I don't think by the end of season 7, they really even figure that out. I think it's going to take a lot of therapy.
Well, but yeah, because there's always, again, like were saying before, like there's that resentment or whatever, because there
Yeah.
is that I have power. Like you're not the only one who has power. I have power too. And we know, like, and Xander, I've clocked field time or whatever. Like there's that resentment of I've been in here in the fight with you this entire time. What makes you different? What makes you better? Who puts you in charge? But it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like you all did. Like you followed her into this fight from the beginning. Like you followed. You didn't start the fight. You didn't have to be a part of it, but you chose to be by her side and to like support her and do this. And so like that resentment is building up over the course of the years as you all gain more power and experience. But to your point of, well, maybe she brought her back because she didn't want to have that responsibility of doing that in the first place. Like, so again, like you can't, like it's one of those things where it's like you can't have it both ways. You can't, if she's gonna be there and be the Slayer and do that, then I think you should support her. Now, it doesn't mean that Buffy gets to just do whatever she wants to and that she's right all the time. I don't know. See, I struggle with season 7 because I don't necessarily see in my quick like looking through in my head, I don't see where she makes huge missteps, especially considering everything that she's dealing with. I think she's just trying to figure out what happens. And, when Giles comes back too, like it's a weird thing of like, she's like, well, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing my best based on what I have. And he criticizes everything that she does. And it's like, what, like, who the hell are you, dude? Like, you haven't been here. You don't get a say in this. You're back, you're here for the fight. You are not offering any new information. All you're doing is bringing me more problems that I have to deal with all these girls coming into the house. With Buffy in season 7, I really do feel like she's just put upon a lot, and that like there's not a lot of support. So I understand where maybe yeah, like where maybe she's not communicating as effectively as she could be because she's dealing with so many things that people are just like tossing onto her that she's like, ugh, everyone's bringing me problems and no one's offering a solution.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Giles situation is different from the situation I think with Willow and Xander. I don't just because he criticizes her does not mean his criticisms are valid. I think he had his own issues and he was definitely putting them on Buffy, and he had his own, he was letting his fear. I mean, I think so much of Giles's actions in season 6 and 7 were driven by fear. And so that doesn't necessarily mean he's correct. But as far as like with Willow and Xander and just the others, I would say like I get what you're saying. I do think that there is a lot of resentment in the relationship with Buffy. But that being said, what I was also trying to get at with the fact that they have this friction in trying to figure out their roles as friends, but also as again, I use colleagues because I think it's the like closest, the fact that they're, or maybe
Right.
fellow soldiers, that they're in this battle together and they do have a leader, but because they started off so collaboratively, but then Buffy starts to cut herself off emotionally, so she also starts to cut herself off as a leader and just take that like, no, I'm the leader, I have to make the decisions. And partly too, when you get into season 5, it becomes very personal because they made Dawn out of her and they forced her into her life. So I understand that also kind of changes the situation
Hmm.
in the roles. But what I'm saying is it's just a constant friction and they never really figure it out, even by the end of season 7. They might start to get there in the later years as they're building the new council, whatever it's called. I could see that because then they're all having different roles, but still working in that collaborative way because they have their own, expertise. And then
Well,
they're also growing up and, that brain development is happening. And God, I hope everyone got therapy. If Faith did nothing else, I feel like with her experience from jail and having or prison and being required to go to therapy, she should tell them that is one requirement for the new council. So yeah, that's all I'm kind of trying to say. I mean, I
yeah.
I get what you're saying, but I do think maybe not so much directly with her friends in the early part of the season, but I do think an example of Buffy overstepping or taking maybe the wrong attitude and how she approaches it. Like after Chloe commits suicide, and then she just says that like Chloe is weak and Chloe is and I get where she
Sure.
was coming from.
Yeah.
But it was obvious it was not the right way to handle the situation. And even the way she pushes Spike, I'm 50-50 on whether that was fully the right way to handle the situation. As well. I mean, I think
Sure. Yeah. I get that
there is
part
there
for
is some
sure.
harshness. Although that being said, based, on how things had ended, what had happened between them in season 6, maybe there's nothing wrong with what she said to him.
Yeah,
Maybe
she
he
gets
did
to say
need to hear
whatever.
that. But I do think there were moments where
Oh,
she
she's
was like
definitely
super,
cold and closed
yes,
off.
and particularly when she's super stressed. So
Yeah.
again, not saying I don't understand why, and I'm, can 100% sympathize with her, but that doesn't mean you can't also call her out on that behavior.
Yeah. Yes, that part for sure. Yeah, she's definitely like stressed out and definitely cold and like
Yeah.
frustrated and so all of the like bad parts of Buffy kind of come to the forefront post that, you know. And maybe even up through where she's like, "Well, I'm declaring an emergency," and they break out the emergency kit and all of that stuff, and she's got, and they
Right.
go to the Shadow Realm and all that. Like even that probably is she makes some choices that are just out of like, I don't know what else to do. I'm tired of like somebody's got to make a choice. Something's going to happen. I'm just going to do it. And then it just kind of gets tossed out there. So, yeah, I can see where that's not necessarily like the most effective way to get through it. So is their
Is
friendship
there
outside of the slang?
It's hard for me to answer because part of me wants to see how they are moving into their mid and late 20s. And because I feel like, again, that teen and early 20 years and the brain development, there can be such differences. So I'd be like super curious to see them years later because I could see it going either way, honestly. I mean, I do think there's legitimate friendship, legitimate love, respect, family amongst them. But at the same time, there is a lot of issues. There is a lot of resentment. They've been through a lot of trauma. There is trauma bonding, which doesn't make for, healthy long-term relationships. So I'm 50-50 on, I think is my answer.
Yeah, I think, see, it's so entwined, like the slaying was
Yeah.
so entwined into everything because
Hmm.
it changed all of them irrevocably. Like they will
Yeah.
never be the same people anymore. And because they are so involved in the supernatural world now, like they can never not. Here's the thing. I think like that's the issue is that they will always be a part of the slaying world but they don't have to be friends.
Yeah, I mean, I
Because
would
I think that they could grow, like I think there are situations like if you move forward in time, there could be a situation where, because Willow is so powerful, because Xander's doing whatever, because of all of that, there could be a situation that sort of breaks them apart. I mean, and we kind of see that a little bit in the comic books when we see, spoiler alert, when we have Angel as like the big bad, but he's like Moonlight because he doesn't necessarily, and we see it a little bit in Angel that he doesn't trust Buffy and the Slayer army, that he thinks it's too much power, that they have too much power to wield, and like the moral things that they deal with like the amount of magic and magic going away from the world and all of that, like all of those big questions that could come up that they could all take different viewpoints on because of the maturity that they have, because of their experience, because of their like, quote unquote power level that there are. Like they're always going to be in the Slayer world, the Slayer supernatural world, but they don't necessarily have to stay friends. Like it's the thing that brought them together, but what's the thing that's really going to keep them together?
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. I actually disagree that they have to stay in the Slayer world as well. I think Buffy is the only one. I mean, aside from the other potentials, but in the context of the friendship, Buffy is the only one who has to stay in the Slayer world because she is a Slayer. uh, Based on the text, it's not like the Devon Coven, as far as we know, is out there also like fighting just because they're a coven of witches. So, Willow could go off and hang out with a coven and not necessarily be fighting the battles on a daily and yearly basis.
Well, she's off
Xander,
doing some other stuff though. She
yeah,
is,
but
I mean,
well, that's the comics. I'm not taking the comics right now as canon in this in my comment. So, Xander could easily leave. Obviously, Dawn could easily leave. I mean, they also could choose to stay in it and work together, or even do stay in it but not work together. But I don't think I'm just saying I disagree with you in that there's a guarantee that they always have to be a part of the Slayer world. I think that's only Buffy because of who she is. And even down the road, because she's activated all the Slayers, if they ever get on their own footing and the organization gets up, it'd probably be a lot easier for her to walk away than if she was the only Slayer or only one of two Slayers in the world. So, I think they would have to, I mean, they'd have to, like any friendship, they wanted to stay together, they would have to work together to keep that friendship going,
yeah.
to keep that family going. But I do think there is enough between them that it's not just about trauma bonding. And that
Yeah.
they wouldn't
Well,
automatically fall apart post Sunnydale. So
yeah.
that answers the question. Yes.
And your hypothetical taking the comics out, absolutely. And in
Yeah.
the actual, it's a comics going, we know that they do
Right.
continue
Exactly.
to work
Yes.
together, and but not in the same way that they
Right.
did before. And because
Well, and then
because the power dynamic changes.
yeah, and then when, Buffy and Twilight have magical sex and take all the magic out of the world, and there is no magic, they come back together more so as friends because
Yeah.
I mean there's still challenges in the supernatural world even with magic being gone. But that being said, it goes back to about their friendship again. So the comics would argue that yes,
That yes, there is
you know,
friendship outside of it. Yeah.
correct. So,
So what do you
well,
all think?
awesome.
I'm curious
Yeah.
what everyone else thinks.
As
If
always, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Do you think there's friendship beyond the slaying? And so you can, let us know your thoughts in email by emailing us at abuffypodcast@gmail.com. And of course, you can follow us on social media and hit us up there at a Buffy Podcast, both on Instagram and Facebook. And we would love to hear from you on wherever you listen to podcasts. Give us 5 stars, rate us, review us. That helps us to know how we're doing with the episodes and to know what you're liking, what you're not liking, and of course helps us get more people to hear about us because you're rating and reviewing us. So we hope you enjoyed this conversation and we look forward to talking to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.